Welcome to the Jerome McClain Show. I'm your host, Jerome McClain, and let's get into our episode.
Intelligentsia, the endem of sarcasm, the nutty professor to your whack-ass marmalade. It's T-Bone from T-Bone and Chick Brew in the morning. Now available in podcast format. Simply search for the T-Bone and Chick Brew podcast, available wherever fine podcasts are sold.
Welcome to the Jerome McClain Show. Good evening. Independent media that doesn't reinforce tribalism. We have one planet and nobody is leaving, so let us reason together. Tonight I want to start quietly, not because this isn't urgent, but because some things demand reverence before reaction. Something has actually shifted in the world around us, and violence used to feel distant. It happened overseas or in other neighborhoods or behind police tape and breaking news barriers. It actually had distance. Now, it actually doesn't. Now, it's in the house. It's in the classroom, in the concert hall, and in the synagogues. It is not just happening around us anymore, it's happening between us. If I can be quite plain about that. And I'm trying to figure out a way to try to formulate this. And so I somewhat just wanted to talk to you plainly today about this violence, about the things that's happened over the past few days, and we'll get through this together. So, it's going to be a heavy show, but we'll get through this together, all right? And I'm going to talk about this like this. I'm going to lay out 3 events quickly, without any details yet, and it's going to be 1, a father killed by sons, Reiner and Skite, Brown University shooting, and an antisemitic attack in Austria. Okay, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, what I think the larger implications are, and that would be family, education, faith. And they're not separate stories. If, in fact, I would argue they are one story told in 3 dialects. And tonight it's not about the shock. It's about the pattern. Because when the unthinkable becomes imaginable and then repeatable, a society is beginning to be told something about itself, whether it wants to listen to what is being told or not. So let's begin where the horror is closest. 2 men, Rob Reiner and Jubilant Sykes, killed within days of each other. Both artists, both beloved, both fathers, both allegedly, as being reported right now, killed by their own children, killed by their own sons, to be precise. So sit with that. We are currently prepared for violence without distance. We know how to talk about crime, and we know how to talk about strangers. We know how to talk about intruders, enemies, and outsiders. But when violence comes from within your own family, from your own blood, from your own lineage, from intimacy, the language starts to collapse because family is supposed to be the last shelter. Rob Reiner spent his lifetime telling stories about human connection, about human absurdity, about human love, about the fragile beauty of people trying to understand each other. And yet, his final chapter was not written by critics or by history, but by betrayal so intimate it feels unspeakable. This is not a Hollywood drama. This is a family annihilation. Jubilant Sykes carried a voice that crossed worlds. Opera, gospel, jazz, spirituals. He made excellence accessible. He welcomed people into beauty, and still, his art did not and could not save him. His love did not shield him. His legacy did not intervene to protect him. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. Mental illness can explain behavior, but it does not and it cannot erase the consequences. Addiction can distort love, but it does not and it cannot sanctify violence. And pretending otherwise does not make families safer. It makes things a lot more fragile. And there is a myth that we cling to, and the myth is that good parenting guarantees great outcomes. It actually doesn't, because children become moral agents. Illnesses complicate that responsibility, and love alone cannot substitute for structure, treatment, or accountability. This isn't about blame, it's about honesty. Because when violence comes from within the home, the problem isn't security, it's formation, it's care, it's isolation. So I'm going to wind the lens out a bit and talk about Brown University, a place we associate with brilliance, with progress, with enlightenment, and yet violence. And we keep acting shocked when violence shows up in places we label educated. But education without grounding is not wisdom, it's acceleration. We build campuses to sharpen minds, but we forget to steady the souls. Universities today are pressure cookers. High expectations, high competition, high isolation. We tell young people achieve, excel, be different, but we do not teach them how to belong. And when belonging collapses, then meaning goes with it. A university can teach you what to think about and still fail to teach you how to live in this world, especially at the moment with young men who are often taught performance without permission to fail, ambition without emotional literacy, and strength without community. We are surprised when pressure explodes, but pressure always explodes when it has nowhere to go. This isn't just a campus problem, it's a formation problem. And now I have to go to a problem that's a lot older, a lot darker, and far more familiar than even I would like to admit. And I have to go to Austria and the anti-Semitic attack, because history should have inoculated us against this, but it didn't. Anti-Semitism never arrives randomly. It actually resurfaces when societies are anxious. It resurfaces when societies are fragmented. It resurfaces when societies are confused. Jews actually become symbolic targets when cultures lose their moral bearings, if you look at the history. And this is not about Israel policy debates. And this is not about geopolitics. And this is about what happened when we as people need a villain because they cannot name the pain. Antisemitism is a warning light on the dashboard that civilization is heading in a very bad direction. And when that anti-Semitic warning light flickers, it's telling us something deeper is failing. It is trying to tell us that fear is approaching and it's staring us right in the face. It's telling us that grievance is searching for a body. And that chaos, when it arises, is looking and it normally tries to find a scapegoat. And when a society tolerates that, it has already begun to forget its own history. So what connects all these stories? Family murder, campus violence, religious hatred, different settings, same root: isolation. We have privatized suffering and are shocked when it explodes publicly. We have outsourced formation. We've outsourced it to therapists, to police, to institutions, to algorithms, and we call it compassionate. We confuse explanations with excuse. We speak endlessly about empathy and rarely about responsibility. And a society with shared moral language will default into unity. But a society without shared moral language will default to chaos, vitriol, and violence. So scripture understood something modern psychology is trying to rediscover, and I think it's rediscovering very late. People are not just broken, they are unformed. Meaning is not optional. Community is not optional. Boundaries are not cruelty. Because care without structure collapses. And structure without care hardens us. We've lost the balance and the violence keeps filling the vacuum. So what now? What do? We don't need more outrage. We need fewer surprises. If we keep pretending these events are unconnected, we guarantee that they'll keep happening. If we keep celebrating brilliance while neglecting the slow work of sustaining human beings, we will keep building platforms instead of safety nets. Real tribute would not be a hashtag or a candlelight visual. It would be early intervention, accessible care, communities that notice, families that are supported before crisis becomes catastrophe. What if the measures of a healthy society isn't how loudly it condemns violence after the fact, but how seriously it invests in people before they break? Care is not weakness. Boundaries are not cruelty. Meaning is not optional. Ignore these truths, and violence will keep finding its way to us over and over again. I'll be back for the next segment. Let's get to something a bit more different here. Let me start here. For most of modern history, as science fiction existed for one reason, and that was to talk about things we couldn't yet do without admitting we actually wanted to. So you had writers like Isaac Asimov, Aldous Huxley, and George Orwell. They pushed the story just far enough into the future that we could explore the consequences without feeling personally indicted. robots, genetic engineering, human beings reduced to systems, numbers, and experiments. But here's the problem. The future actually seems to have showed up early. And now things we once warned ourselves about are being reported by the Wall Street Journal. Now, this is not a rumor, and this is not a conspiracy, and this is not a dystopian fiction. This is hard-hitting reporting. So the headline reads as such: the Chinese billionaire having dozens of U.S.-born babies via surrogates. Now, brace yourself, because this is a subhead, and the subhead is worse. A Chinese video game billionaire is reported to have more than 100 children born in the United States through IVF and surrogacy. So one man and 100 children purchased through a global fertility supply chain. And it came to light in the Los Angeles courtroom when a judge noticed something strange. And that was the same name over and over. Petitions for paternal rights to unborn children, again and again and again. 4 at first, then 8 more, all carried by surrogates. And when the judge called him for a hearing, the billionaire didn't even show up. He appeared on video from China and through an interpreter. And he told the courts he hoped to have 20 or so U.S.-born children, boys, because boys, he said, are superior to girls. They were being bred to one day take over his business. Now let that sit in. These children, already born, were being raised by nannies in California, while paperwork was being prepared to ship them overseas. The father had met them. He was too busy running billions to meet his children. Now, let's just pause here, because we need to name what's happening. This is not parenting. This is not family formation. This is industrialized reproduction. Sperm purchased, eggs purchased, embryos selected, surrogate wombs rented, babies delivered, then handed out to nannies like Amazon packages. This is not a slippery slope. This is the actual bottom of the hill. And here's the part that Christians, religious people especially, need to stop dodging. IVF did not cause this, but it did make it possible. Once reproduction is removed from marriage, once conception is removed from intimacy, once children are removed from a covenant, they actually become products. Selectable, distraceable, customizable. And don't miss this. He didn't want children. He wanted boys, which means embryos were sorted, embryos were chosen, embryos were rejected, and embryos were eliminated. Now that is sex selection. That is eugenics with better branding. Another elite client wanted only girls so he could one day marry them off to very powerful men. That's not speculation. That's in the report as well. This is in Plato's Republic without a credit card. And everybody involved is actually getting paid. The surrogates are getting paid. The clinics are getting paid. The law firms are getting paid. The agencies are getting paid. The nannies are getting paid. Now, this is up to $200,000 per child. So you do the math. 100 children is a $20 million enterprise. And this is happening in the United States for one simple reason. It's illegal in China. So the wealthy shop jurisdictions. What they can't do at home, they will buy abroad, which brings us to citizenship. These children are born here. They are born in the United States on purpose, so they receive United States citizenship. Not because of allegiance to the United States of America, not because of belonging to the United States of America, but because citizenship has become a perk bundled with the purchase. If you ever wondered whether birthright citizenship could be abused, this is actually your answer. Now, we have to say this. No one who wrote the 14th Amendment imagined billionaire baby factories coming from China. No one. Now, let's talk the theology plain and straight. God did not give us children as technology. God gave us children as a gift within a context, within a marriage, within a family, within a covenant, within a responsibility, within a presence. When you remove the context, you destroy the good. When you redefine the order, you corrupt the purpose. That isn't process. That isn't progress. That is a discretion. And we can't be fooled by industry language. They don't say the word mother anymore. They say surrogate. They say carrier. The father doesn't want the children to raise them. The father doesn't father. The father commissions. The child doesn't belong. The child is delivered. And the industry worries not about the morality of the situation, but the perception. They don't want you to look at it as like it's a commodification, but that's exactly what it is. Now zoom out from this, and you'll see that there have been more billionaires on earth right now than there has ever been in the history of the world. There are nearly 3,000 billionaires. And the 3,000 billionaires control 15.8 trillion. And that kind of money can buy anything. And now we know that kind of money can buy anything, including children. Welcome to the brave new world. Not of science, not of technology, but of unchecked wealth meeting moral collapse, where everything is for sale, every human life. And if this doesn't set off alarms, ethical, legal, spiritual, in you, then we've already accepted the logic of the factory. And once you do that, don't be surprised when the future looks less like a family and more like an assembly line. And that's the truth. And that is the world that we are now living in.
Democrats need to flip just 3 seats next year to win control of the House of Representatives. Knowing this, Donald Trump has openly tried to gerrymander his way to holding power, smashing norms around mid-decade redistricting to do it. Some states, like Texas, predictably responded to Trump's possible unconstitutional demand with, "How high, sir? How many seats do you want? How many can we give you?" But in a shocking turn of events, 21 Republican state senators joined all Indiana Democrats last Thursday to vote down a Trump-backed gerrymandered map that would have likely handed Republicans 2 extra U.S. House seats. Over the past 4 months, as Donald Trump's approval ratings continue to bottom out, the president has been desperately pushing for those extra 2 seats that Indiana could give him. Really hard. He was working at this really hard. He sent his vice president, J.D. Vance, to Indiana twice to work over Republican leaders. And on social media, Trump told Indiana lawmakers to, quote, do their job and pass the redistricting map. The intimidation wasn't just online. After Trump's social media complaints, multiple Indiana Republicans reported swatting, bomb threats, and other incidents leading up to the vote. And when Trump was denied his gerrymandered map, he wasted no time attacking Indiana Republican Senate leader Roderick Bray.
You had one gentleman, the head of the Senate, I guess, Bray, whatever his name is. I heard he was against it. He probably loses next primary, whenever that is. I hope he does, but because he's done a tremendous disservice. I'm sure that whenever his primary is, it's, I think, in 2 years, but I'm sure he'll go down. I'll certainly support anybody that wants to go against it.
After the vote, Indiana's Republican Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith warned in a now-deleted tweet that there would be consequences for defying Trump, saying, quote, the Trump administration was very clear about this. They told many lawmakers, cabinet members, and the governor and I that this would happen. The Indiana Senate made it clear to the Trump administration today that they do not want to be partners with the White House. The White House made it clear to them that they'd oblige. Beckwith was responding to this tweet from the Heritage Foundation. Quote, President Trump has made it clear to Indiana leaders, if the Indiana Senate fails to pass the map, all federal funding will be stripped from the state.
Roads will not be paved. Guard bases will close. Major projects will stop. These are the stakes, and every no vote will be to blame, end quote. Let's put that aside for a second. We'll talk about the inherent threat in not doing what the president wants. The White House has denied that the Trump administration threatened to cut federal funding to Indiana, but you'll recall Trump also denied knowing what the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 was during the election, even though a bunch of his closest allies wrote pretty much everything in it. And now we see the former vice president of the Heritage Foundation's lobbying arm, Russell Vought, serving as the White House Office of Management and Budget Director and carrying out Project 2025 proposals to fire federal workers, to dismantle DEI programs, to reshape immigration policy. Regardless, Trump publicly and spectacularly failed to bully Indiana Republicans into doing his bidding last week. Voters will ultimately have the chance to rebuke Donald Trump and his policies less than a year from now.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Has anybody ever told you you were over opinionated? How about this one? You can talk about everything you like, but don't talk about religion. Don't talk about faith. Don't talk about politics. My name is Jerome McClain, host of Jerome McClain Show, and I want to introduce you to a show called Over Opinionated with my friend from Southwest Virginia, Josh Scott. Josh has always been told he has been over opinionated. He always tried to hold back these opinions, but he tried to back them up when he had to say something with facts and logic. Since he's grown up in many ways, he had to change a lot of his views and his opinions, as a lot of people should. He's not a millionaire from Fox News or CNN. He's just a hard-working, blue-collar type of guy. Give Josh Scott a shot at Over Opinionated with Josh Scott. You can find him on patreon.com/overopinionated at 679. You can also check him out on Twitter at NRV_guy79. Overopinionated with Josh Scott, where he is this soft-spoken guy telling you the truth. We talk about a lot of serious topics on this show. One very serious topic is women's health. One company that stood out to me was vslay.com because the owner is very transparent about her own struggles in the women's health department and has great customer service, great deals, and frequent sales. You can check her out, her great customer service, products about women's health, and frequent sales at www.vslay.com. That is www.vslay.com.
Right. So let me leave you with this tonight. We talked about a lot today about power stories, how they're told, death, what we're expected to swallow, etc. But before we go, I want to return to something unglamorous, sacred, and ancient. I'll just put it that way. The American economy added 64,000 jobs in November. And I'm pretty sure by now you've heard how that's being sold, like salvation, like proof that the economy is going great, proof that everything is fine, and that the system is working, and that your anxiety is just a failure of gratitude. But tucked at the bottom of the paper was October's numbers, and it was reported that 150,000 jobs disappeared in the month of October. So when you put the months together, when you refuse to amputate history for the sake of a headline, you're left with this. The United States is actually, in the last 2 months, negative 41,000 jobs. Now, that isn't my opinion, and that isn't my ideology, and that isn't my cynicism. That is just pure accounting. And here's what I want you to sit with before you turn the lights out tonight. Because the danger is not in bad news. The danger is in dishonest good news. The kind of news that trains people to doubt their own lived reality. The kind of news that tells the mother working 2 jobs that she should feel hopeful while she's choosing between groceries, power, and gas. The economy does not live on cable news panels. It lives in kitchens. It lives in break rooms. It lives in late night prayers where it's been over bills spread across the table. And when leaders celebrate partial recovery as a full victory, they're not just misreading data, they are breaking trust. Now, the Bible warns us against false weights and measures, against scales that look balanced but are rigged, and an economy explained without context is a rigged scale. A gain that doesn't cover the loss is not growth, it's survival dressed up as progress. Now, I'm not saying we should all despair, but what I am saying is don't surrender. I'm saying ask for clarity, because clarity is the precondition for justice to happen. And justice is the precondition for peace to happen. We don't fix, and we cannot fix what we refuse to name. We don't heal, and we cannot heal what we pretend isn't wounded. And if we don't build a future on numbers, we won't finish counting. So I'm going to close like this. The math still is math, and the math still matters. A trend is a trend, and the trend still matters. And you matter more than any narrative ever will. And until the gains actually outrun the losses, and until the economy works, and not just as an economy that works on paper, but an economy that works on practice, the truth remains what it is, that we are still behind. And with that, we'll go to our blast from the intellectual past, and I'll see you on the next episode.
$70 trillion.
I understand that, but
Those
you
do
can't
to
sit
walk
there
out
and
a
say,
$4 trillion solution, which is basically just a way for the Democrats to avoid dealing with this until 2017. I'm not here to talk about plans to deal with this till 2017. I'm saying we've got a real problem, and I'm tired of Republicans and Democrats who either want Republicans who want to burn the place to the ground, and Democrats, with all due respect, who want to offer a plan that gets it through their end of their second term of their presidency, and then screws me and my kids when it's over. And until we do that, we have to deal with the extraction that is at foot. It is the reason the financial markets are behaving the way they're behaving. That is a mathematical fact. This is not some opinion. This is a mathematical fact. Tens of trillions of dollars are being extracted from the United States of America. Democrats aren't doing it. Republicans are not doing it. An entire integrated system, financial system, trading system, taxing system that was created by both parties over a period of 2 decades is at work on our entire country right now. And we're sitting here arguing about whether we should do the $4 trillion plan that kicks the can down the road for the president for 2017 or burn the place to the ground, both of which are reckless, irresponsible, and stupid. And the fact of the matter is, until we actually, and I'm sorry to lose my temper, but I tell you what, I've been coming on TV for 3 years doing this. And the fact of the matter is that there's a refusal on both the Democratic and the Republican side of the aisle to acknowledge the mathematical problem, which is that the United States of America is being extracted. It's being extracted through banking, it's being extracted through trade, and it's being extracted through taxation. And there's not a single politician that has stepped forward, Susan, to deal with
but
this.
there's only one right now. The leader of the free world, whether you like it or not, the president of the United States is arguably one of the most powerful individuals we have out there.
But
and
Susan,
he's
what you're saying is exactly the point that Dylan is making. It's not about one guy. It's about all of them.
No, I actually disagree. I think Dylan's
What is one guy?
I
Isn't
agree with
about
her.
one guy.
It is
What's
about
he
one
doing?
guy.
What would you like him to do? What would you want him to do?
I would like him to go to the people of the United States of America and say, people of the United States of America, your Congress is bought. Your Congress is incapable of making legislation on healthcare, banking, trade, or taxes, because if they do it, they will lose their political funding and they won't do it. But I'm the president of the United States, and I won't have a country that is run by a bought Congress. So I'm not going to work with a bought Congress and try to be Mr. Big Guy. I'm working with the bought Congress. I'm going to abandon the bought Congress like Teddy Roosevelt did, and I'm going to go to the people of the United States and I'm going to say, you've got a bought Congress. And until we get rid of the bought Congress, which is Jimmy Williams' constant point, which which is get the money out of politics. And until a president says that's the problem and says he's going to fix it, there is no policy that I can possibly see, no matter how brilliant your idea may be, or your idea, or my idea, or her idea, or your idea at home, is that idea will not happen as long as there's the capacity to basically fire a politician who disagrees with me by taking funding away from him. Is that a fair assessment?
Money in politics is the root of all political evil. It is corruption at its worst. And until we step up and kick that out of the park, it's going to be the same system.
And only the president can do that.
No. Congress has to do it too. Congress has to do it too.
But I'll tell you what. How bad does it have to get? How much money has to be extracted? How many things have to be heard?
The brass tacks. Okay, physically, what do?
You go and give a speech.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
You say.
And then what happens tomorrow?
Tomorrow, what happens is you begin the process of actually investing in solving the problem. So I come out and I say, how? I create an infrastructure bank with 2% blending immediately. There's that. Once I explain to people the problem, once I explain to you you have cancer, once you understand how screwed up your trade tax and banking policies are, believe me, you will have no issue when I incorporate an infrastructure bank that I fund with repatriated offshore money that I bring in and then use to create 2% direct lending to every business in America. Because when you realize that the banking system is fully corrupt and defrauding us, and I come out and say that, which is what I want my president to do, that at that exact moment I say, you know what? We got a screwed up situation here, people. You all know it, and now what? I'm going to admit it. And as a result, not only have I admitted it, but we're going to begin the process of solving it like grown-ups. They did it in World War II. They did it after the Civil War. They did it in Latin America with the Brady bonds. We are not seeing it happen now. The panel stays a little more emotional than I anticipated getting at work this afternoon, but what am I going to do?
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Of course, if you want to support the show, you can do so by going to www.patreon.com and getting a membership for as little as $3 a month. Again, that's www.patreon.com/The Jerome McClain Show. The Jerome McClain Show is fully listener-supported, independent media that won't lead you to tribalism. Get a membership and support independent media at www.patreon.com/The Jerome McClain Show.